I'm probably going to have to go with PRX being the team that's going to be able to win Masters 2. Again, I think they're playing the best Valorant that we've seen so far.
I'm just going to go with FPX. I've been really impressed with them. They're kind of riding the wave at the moment of Xerxia coming in. So
Okay, all right. And I'll just go with Optic because I can.
that's a smart one.
I think they lose. I think they lose against Paper Rex though. Oh, all right. Holy, it's been a week and a bit in the Valorant world. I'm not kidding. It's July 19th, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Valoranting, and you're mad as fuck because you have to wait 3 more days before the rest of Masters continues over in Copenhagen. But we have a little bit of the smoke clearing, and I mean the results are pretty insane. We'll talk about some of that today. First of all, want to make special mention and special welcome to Sliggy for coming on the show to help us as a co-host today, mate. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's kind of like everyone else, really. Just needed to fill the 3 days, so this kind of fills up my day a little bit. So it's good.
That's
Yeah,
it.
glad we could catch you for sure. Vans as well. What's going on, man? You got the WCG hoodie
going
on.
old
You got the
school.
XSET hat. You are emblazoned with branding.
This is an old school 2007. 2007.
2007. What was I doing in 07?
There you go.
I was in grade 10. I was in grade 10.
Yeah, I was.
And I was a twerp with a popped collar, strutting around at school. Yeah.
I think this was an event where I was interviewing, I think, Lurpus or Tommy after they were like Team Finland. They were like a coordination, whatever the Finland coordinates are on a map. That was their team. And it was 2007, Counter-Strike 1.6. It was good times. And then
what were you doing,
repping the set. Even if we can't rep the fucking set, they can't make it that far in Masters, they're still repping the set.
Dude, I have no idea. I can't remember what happened like 2 weeks ago, and you guys were talking about like years ago. I'm just here like, what? I have no idea. Absolutely.
Oh shit.
Maybe playing. I'm not
I
sure.
did know what happened 2 weeks ago as well. It was when we brought Twitch on board as one of our partners, sponsors of the show. So big shout out to Twitch. Thanks so much for helping us make this show possible. It's great to be here on the platform and to have your support. Let's dive straight into it. Let's talk about our group stages so far. Let's try and do it around the grounds here because we definitely had some surprises, some upsets, or some expectations that were by and large subverted. I think definitely while we're talking about it, let's have a look at the Group A bracket here, guys, and we can just cast our eyes over some of what we've seen so far. Maybe not too shocking. I think like a lot of people didn't expect Crew to be, so strong up against Loud as they were. I guess like, we can bring up that second, the Group B bracket here, but I think like one of the things that shocked people was Loud sort of getting eliminated in the fashion they did after what being second place last time around. Kind of insane to see not only how globally these teams have sort of advanced, but also regionally with Crew being the ones to knock them down there in the first place, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's even looking at the Group A when it's Loud versus Optic literally right here having to fight for tournament survival when they were the 2 finalists in Iceland. So I don't think it's surprising really to see Guild that beat Optic Gaming 2-0, but in a 2-0 fashion potentially. But yeah, definitely at this point, looking at these 2 teams trying to fight for whoever's going to be moving forward, it kind of definitely stings a bit in terms of like the community style saying, well, the seeding's unlucky. It's unfortunate. I kind of do agree with that as well. It kind of sucks to see NA versus NA and EMEA versus EMEA going into the playoffs on top of that. So I don't know, man. It's it at least builds into better tournaments going into later on in Masters 2, so I'm happy to see that. But the start of it, definitely sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, we'll touch on that a bit more, but I want to get Sliggy's thoughts on maybe what he saw that was kind of unexpected in that group stage, and then we'll talk about this little fucking doozy of a topic.
So yeah, so at least for me, I mean, expected, I guess. Optic always seem to just do this thing where they just start super slow. So I guess that's kind of expected now. So they're losing the first game like every time when they go to these lands, and then they just come back strong. For me, unexpected was honestly Crew for sure. Obviously we played them in Iceland. We like strided them pretty heavy. Like we anti-strided them pretty heavy. It felt like there was a lot of like good reads that we had. And then watching them again here now, like 2 months later, yeah, they look completely different. It looked like they had got all of their strats down. It was way more in depth, like a lot of their stuff, and they were just hitting shots, and their stars were kind of shining. So yeah, I felt like they did good. Yeah, it's just dude, all of the teams and groups are so good now. This is the problem with it. Everyone's so good.
Yeah.
Like these groups are brutal.
And we end up with like, speaking of brutal, we end up with like these kind of rough seedings, right? We have like, the whole issue with Loud sort of being where they were, which we'll talk about, and then how we got our seedings after the group stage, sort of, in those playoffs themselves, which is probably worth talking about. So we'll start this off with like a clip from FNS, and then I would like to talk about it a bit, because some of this stuff is just a bit wacky. Let's roll this clip.
Yeah, I think the entire thing is terrible. The fact that teams are getting placed into playoffs through online play. I said this last time as well. I just don't think that's good. I think you have to have everybody play group stages. Everybody made the tournament, right? Just because you get first seed out of an online tournament where you're playing at your home doesn't mean you get a playoff spot. So that's problem number one. Yeah, obviously, besides that, it sucks that we're having to play a North American team. This is the third time we're playing a North American team in the first round. So there's definitely something wrong with that.
Yeah, so obviously, first of all, Loud situation being the top team in Brazil, but that region not having a team that was insta-seeded into playoffs because of just a numbers thing. Instead, it went to Leviatan from Latam, and they kind of like mixed Loud in with Crew and Leviatan, and they just sort of, picked the latter there. That's obviously not good. But let's talk about this idea of sort of seedings for tournaments or seedings for like playoffs being decided in online games. This probably feels fairly valid, especially because this is now the second time the Optic have had to play through this scenario, right? Where they get seeded, forced to play groups, and XSET obviously kind of get boomed. They suffer the same fate as the Guard, right?
I was thinking about it more and more, like, because I know some people are also saying in like Reddit and Twitter or whatever, like, oh well, if Optic and Loud, for example, are already the finalists in Iceland, should they just get like a bye going into Masters or stuff like that too? But I think in general, you already see this type of like promotion ladder when you're comparing Masters to Champions, right? Because getting enough circuit points will already give you an automatic berth to Champions, but when it comes down to like the local tournaments, I still think that even if you made it far in the brackets during the main tournament on LAN, then you're still skipping at least like some sort of group stages or open qualifier, which kind of gives you the advantage already. But in an era where a lot of the tournaments are already happening online, I do get the frustration of the players too, of being like, well, fuck, it doesn't really feel that they get any advantage at all. But you got to deal, you got to play with the cards that are dealt to you, I guess, with the format that we currently have. I don't know if it's necessarily the best format, Sliggy, because I know you kind of were able to live that with Liquid.
Yeah, so at least where I view it, I get the there's like one positive, which is like for the overall ecosystem where you kind of have some regions confirmed to the top 8. That's kind of cool. Like that's like the only positive in my mind. Like that's a cool thing to have like regions set to a certain into the top 8 into playoffs. I think that's good for just the growth of the game. But then there's just like so many disadvantages. There's so many things where it's just like the thing that really sticks with me is when you are playing these group games and you are showing all of your strats and stuff. This is such a strat heavy game, and it's getting easier and easier to anti-strat, and the more data you have, it's easier and easier. So it means it's so hard coming out of these groups. So yeah, it's like you're fighting groups, you have a disadvantage, and then you have like another disadvantage where there's just so much stuff teams to look at in terms of just data. So yeah, I'm not a fan in terms of it from the competitive side. I think for the growth of the game, it's not too bad. But yeah, I wouldn't like to see it in the future, really. Maybe once we get onto LAN and it's stuff with LAN, then I'm more happy with it. But a lot determined online still kind of doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah,
I get the feeling that they're trying to play as much of the tournament beforehand as they can, because it's very expensive to have tournament days. So the more they can finalize before anyone steps foot into a LAN arena, the cheaper it's easy it's going to be logistically for them.
But I also think like the issue also stems, for example, with like the really big regions, right? In terms of South America versus Latin America versus South America, or
Brazil, Latin, North.
And then for example, Korea with like SEA, right? So like how does DRX that are just unstoppable throughout their whole season in Korea still have to play groups, while Loud, again, who are unstoppable in Brazil, but also got second place in Iceland, has to play groups because Leviatan beat NIP or beat Crew or something like that. You know, it's kind of weird.
That's the only one that people can really complain about, right?
But
Because
that's
every
the
other
thing, we need to
team
find
that
the
auto
format for
went
that.
through. I mean, would you say the XSET deserved that spot?
I mean, they did beat Optic for it, right? So if you have to, yeah, online, one thing, but the other thing is it's still a head-to-head that happened, and it was the same thing for EMEA, so it's somewhat justifiable. But I think the other layer of what Pujan was also saying is what happens in the group stages. So now that you have your 4 teams that qualified, that's going to play with the other 4 teams that qualified, but then it has to be a random seeding draw of a hat that also could pit NA versus NA, EMEA versus EMEA. Would there be a better format for that? Potentially. I don't know if, like, I don't know what the solution could be. I think one of the cool ones I think that I saw was like a Swiss format, and if you had a higher seed going out of Swiss, you get to pick of whoever's out of like not 3-0 in the groups to choose to play. That'll be interesting, but that's a whole different type of scheduling and planning around all of that as well.
This is not GSL style, is it? Because there's not like a buy for the top team in the groups, for example. I think the issue here is that if they structure a tournament such that tournament seeding is determined at LAN at the tournament, then it's probably less team slots is what they have to do. If they want to keep it to, you know, if they want to keep it from sort of billowing out. So there's obviously some trade-offs there, but GSL style might be preferable, right? Which is not, I think we've done that before. It wouldn't be sort of foreign. I want to talk a little bit about the atmosphere at these VCT events. Obviously here in Copenhagen, it's not a full crowd, right? And I don't even know if they sort of have much of a crowd until the last sort of few days.
The last 3 days, yeah, this Friday to Sunday.
But coaching in this kind of environment, right, with the sort of limited tools that are available to coaches and setups, definitely seems to take its toll. I mean, Sliggy, you have a unique perspective on this situation, having sort of been there yourself. I'm curious to know, like, how it feels coaching in this kind of environment as opposed to, let's say, online or in a practice facility.
Yeah, it's so some of the stuff that you don't see is obviously the amount of prep time you have before, and like the online you're kind of more in control of the time in between the maps, and you can like do everything perfectly. But then when you're at LAN as well, in between the games, when you're trying to like prep for the next map and you're trying to like remind everyone, it's like a bit harder. I think we used to like do some like videos just to make it easier for everyone to watch. Dude, being at these LANs and like all the reactions we're seeing is so nice. It's so stressful. Like it is so stressful. It's been so nice for me just watching these guys and just being like, God, I remember what this is like. Even when I'm seeing like people just have like really harsh times and just losing big rounds, and I just remember and just be like, yeah, I've been there. And honestly, in like a weird sadistic way, it's kind of nice to know that it's not me for once. It's just like, yeah, man, like it's kind of, I don't know, a little bit sadistic.
You got a camera on you as well.
Yeah.
I haven't picked your nose in peace.
No, yeah, you can't do anything.
And Baba looks like he's in a fucking Bikram yoga room. You know what I mean?
Dude, I just want a full Baba reactional video cam, just all time, just a little bit on the screen the whole time during the broadcast. He's so animated. It's so, yeah, dude, it's so nice to watch.
It would be amazing. Actually, I wanted to ask you the question at the same time as we're on the coach topic, Sliggy, because I remember watching like a VOD review from Mel over at C9 White the other day. I think she was rewatching. I think it was the PRX game. Nonetheless, she was talking about how these pauses that you're pulling out, the timeouts that you're pulling, because I think you're only allowed 1 per half, so 2 per map per team. So that single timeout, sometimes you're calling it within the first 3 rounds. It's to try to calm down the situation, a hype or something like that. And when you get to like a later timeout, let's say round number 9 out of 12, round 10 out of 12, that's when like you started to figure out your opponents and you're trying to like anti-strat as much as you can within that minute. Does that seem to fall along the lines of like how most of the coaches currently think in the LAN environment of competition?
Yeah, I think so. So it used to be 1 pause per half, but they changed it. I'm not sure when they changed it. I think it was like 6 months ago they changed it so you can now do 2 pauses in 1 half if you want to. So you have 2 pauses, you can use them whenever you want. But basically the way that at least we used to do it in Liquid was we have an original game plan, and then hopefully that goes well. And then when they start adapting to your game plan, you then have another game plan that like you've kind of done on the fly, or either some ideas that you think are going to work, then you can kind of call that, or just counter whatever they're doing back. So a lot of it's like, at least when I did it, we have an original game plan, then you have to fall back on like reactional stuff. And then just within the minute, you're just trying to explain as much as possible. I used to call them ecos, try and do like things that I thought would work in ecos, and then give them the game plans going into the buys as well. So trying to get that into a minute, especially when other people like want to add stuff in, can be pretty hard. But yeah, I like the kind of the coaching input that you have. I think the 2 pauses and everything is actually pretty perfect. And you're seeing like, even I saw some stats the other day, like you're seeing like teams have really big impact with these
like
pauses,
around
especially,
win
like,
rates after pauses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leviatan's
So,
one of them.
Yeah, so it's cool to see that all the coaches are having really good impact.
And I feel like that's such an interesting way. I mean, you know, sample size notwithstanding, to start to gauge the impact of like the coaching and those like timeouts on what teams can sort of do with them. It becomes much more observable. You know, if teams are able to sort of bounce back in a big way following them, because it's not just like to stop momentum, right? It's about what's imparted in those moments and how coaches can make best use of that time.
And there's Don. Making
What?
best at a time.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
Don making the best at a
Don
time
comforting.
outside of the game, right? So,
yeah, I mean, he looks after his boys. You know what I mean? That feels like the Sopranos of
drippy as fuck.
It's a hard thing as well to like kind of manage as well. So like you forget how young everyone is, and there's like a lot of pressure on a lot of people. So like when you lose, like I'm trust me, I'm used to losing now. It's happened a good amount, so you kind of get used to it, and you just it's you just want to stick with everyone, and they're just so young. So like there's so many emotions. Emotions are so high, especially like when we lost when I was in Liquid, we lost in champs, and like we got like boomed out, like we didn't even turn up, like, and you're just kind of like huddling after and looking in everyone's eyes, and it's just like everyone's got tears in their eyes, and you're just like, oh man, this is it's brutal.
It's actually insane. I think people really just forget, and maybe are desensitized to like what it takes for these players, especially these young guys. When I was 18 years old, like I had no discipline. I didn't fucking stick to anything like for more than, you know, I gave up easily, you know what I mean? Like when they're going get tough, like these people are really quite, this is why I love telling stories in esports actually, because we're dealing with really quite extraordinary people from, you know, across the age spectrum of players and coaches and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's worth people just remembering, just, you know, these are quite remarkable individuals and what they're able to achieve, and fostering these mindsets in young people is a challenge, and it's something that coaches have to take on in many situations. Fucking not easy, man. I want to talk about another great source of positivity in esports and gaming. So Juked is a new esports focused social media platform that makes it super easy to stay up to date with Valorant and all of your other esports. They do that obviously by aggregating a lot of the news that comes through from the industry, and also it's turned into a really lively social media platform where a lot of people are sharing their insights, and you get a lot of push notifications as well with breaking news and stuff. It's really, really handy. Today they've announced their second community crowdfunding round over at WeFunder. So you can invest. That's right. For as little as $100, you can invest in Juked as they're looking for this sort of funding round. You can see there as well. A website we're checking out if you're interested. It's kind of a weird time out there, you know, economically. When I was thinking about this as well, with like a potential recession on the horizon, I was like, maybe I can invest in something in esports that doesn't suck. So like, you know, if I can choose between, I don't know, let's say like a project where people like pay a huge franchise fee to buy in, they try and run an esports league that is like profitable, or Juked, you know, then I would go, oh, like I'd love to be able to invest in something like Juked as opposed to this other bloated thing that just doesn't make any sense. So big shout out obviously to the crew. I mean, you guys probably know Fish Sticks and Chris Chan especially. Chan Man, of course. But yeah, if you want to support their growth and participate in their success, check out the campaign page. Obviously, startups are inherently risky, right? But it's worth it if you ever wonder, like, okay, maybe I'm getting to the point where I can make some investments and I want to invest in something that I understand, which is, I mean, that's the kind of thing that Charlie Munger would tell you to do. It's well worth a look. So shout out to Duke. Thanks for partnering with us here on the show, and good luck with your funding round, lads. Looks like you're most of the fucking way there anyway, so good on you. All right, I'm going to call, well, I've got a few segments here that I'm going to call, like, I'm going to be a superlative Steven, all right? Okay. The first one is going to be, can anyone beat PRX on bind? Can anybody beat PRX? Are they the best bind team right now? Do you just need to fucking ban this shit out? Because what we've seen from this squad is, frankly, pretty frightening so far, Vans.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, okay, well, I'll try to pull it out and see what I could talk about, especially the game versus Fnatic, right? I think also already on the desk or during the cast, Brennan Sideshow when they were casting it, they brought up a great point. Fnatic are playing a composition that's not going to warrant any type of like Sentinel, no chamber, so you could actually get a couple of flanks going in and out, which worked out pretty well for the team. Overall, though, for PRX, and that was against Leviatan, for example, but for PRX, they just play a style that's so aggressive that you don't have an opportunity to play at least like one of those type of like defaulties attacks on bind that Fnatic likes to do. Because if you're looking at Alpha for example, playing a Viper, they do a lot of these set mollies where you do a snake bite towards the entrance of B, or you do a snake bite on the top of tin, and then you try to do an execution into the B side to get map control. But when PRX is the type of team that's going to be fairly aggressive on both attack and defense to not let you do these type of default setups, you're always going to have to be on top of your game. So you're almost throwing all of your strats outside the window and hoping to just go pound for pound where you could trade off the best way that you can. And it definitely showed that the gaps that Fnatic kind of had versus Leviatan was also taken advantage of by PRX at this point. So I do think that PRX for now probably is going to be one of the strongest teams with Fnatic and Optic. I think Optic could still beat them though.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of I echo a lot of that. I thought so Paper X for me at least had the most impressive bind I've ever seen. I thought it was the most drilled. They had their play. I was thinking in my head, I was like, if I was gonna try and prep a team for what I've seen, there is so much. It would be like pages and pages of just what I've seen from one game. So there is so much prep that would have to come in. Their playbook seems just so big. There's some really cool flash plays. I really thought their game plan in general was really good, playing against how Fnatic likes to play. Their pushes in like the sides of the maps for like B-long and showers, like especially on the defensive side, within like the 50-second to 40-second mark. I thought that was like really good. I thought they had a great game plan going into this. But I think so I mean, it was really impressive. The one thing that I would say, for like again, if I'm looking at the Optic going into bind, because I think Optic will play them on this map. The one thing that they'll kind of look at is Paper X won both pistols. If Fnatic managed to get a pistol, I think this is closer. I still think they probably lose just with how impressive Paper X looked. But
Yeah.
I think that's going to give Optic a good amount of hope. But yeah, I think it's safe to say they look like the
Amazing.
best team. Yeah, I think they look like the best team
Like-
on bind. It's impressive to have such a deep strap book with a Yoru. When
Yeah.
I watch Yoru's, I'm like, oh, I could anti this so easy. I watched this and I was like, oh, this is too much. This is too much.
It's
Like
so
Don Angel.
coordinated. It looks chaotic, but it's very coordinated because, Dano, if you don't mind, can you replay that round where you see Forsaken go into his Yoru ult? And because he ults and looks towards showers first, sees if somebody's there or not, then goes back into short A. But when he goes back into short A, that's the perfect call to actually say Mind Freak, ult in this portion because there's actually two players in there. What does that do? Forsaken can actually go behind two players and spam with a Vandal. There's an orbital strike that prevents players from going into U-Haul, and if they did, maximum maybe one or two players. And then whoever goes towards the right of the orbital strike is met by a showstopper from Jing. So that's how, through the chaos, they are still so coordinated. And what do they have to re-clear it into you in case somebody makes it into you? They still have the Vi alive, and he could actually get a Prowler into you, so they play the retake after. So it looks like it's just all over the place, but it's just so well coordinated from PRX. And that's the type of style that we've seen from like when they're playing APAC versus Xerxia, when they're playing against all the other teams. And it's like a first look for a lot of these international teams, and it's going to take a lot more of these reps to understand how PRX plays. And I think they're playing the best Valorant outside of Optic, in my opinion, right?
I mean, that info that Forsaken got there playing, you know, like he peeks into showers and then he goes straight to short, right, is huge. But he has to get that, and then he has to relay that extremely quickly.
Oh yeah. It's insane. It's so good right now. I'd love to see the Optic and PRX on bind. I think it's gonna be fucking insane. Euro versus Neon, Euro wins.
Yeah, I think so. They just create so much chaos, and they just seem to be so fine with it. They're just so happy in the chaos. They all know what's going on somehow. I'm looking at the minimap. Everyone's everywhere, and they're all just like, yeah, we all know exactly what's going on. So yeah, they seem to thrive in the chaos. Dude, I really hope that I mean, I'm really confident that Optic's gonna leave it in, so I'm really excited for this matchup. I think this map's gonna be absolutely mad.
Yeah,
I mean, this Paper X team is fucking very, very scary. Being able to knock Fnatic down to the lowers, obviously, that's already gonna be a big tick in my book. So,
yeah.
I want to talk about another player we kind of cherry picked here as well. It's from a DRX game. So we talk about like economy in Valorant, because the game is MR12, right? You definitely are more like subject to like the economy in this game, and obviously falling behind money wise is really quite devastating here with only sort of 12 rounds and a half. This clip here shows Stacks, as far as we can tell, specifically hunting down a couple of these Leviatan players to get their guns off of them.
Yeah.
So obviously, like DRX are like chilling, right? Spike down, they're winning this round, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it's what they do to sort of to put their foot onto the neck, so to speak, of Leviatan, which is even more frightening.
Yeah, for me, it's just maybe to explain a little bit more about the economy of this game versus a game like Counter-Strike, because in Counter-Strike, it's also one of those strats where the terrorist team or even counter-terrorist team would want to save their weapons in a situation where they deem that they cannot win. So, but the big difference is in Counter-Strike, if you're saving as a terrorist, right, and you're within like the freeze time before the round changes, you get 0 money, right? So.
Yes.
But if within Valorant you die, you still get the main bonus of when you died. Or if you stayed alive, then you get 1,000 credits at least as a bonus for Valorant. So because you have less rounds, it's still very important to be able to save your weapon, because that's $2,900 for your Vandal. That's maybe a little bit less utility to buy or armor to buy. On top of that, the 1,000 credits to roll back up into the economy into the later rounds. Versus Counter-Strike is like, well, if you're saving with an AK, you got 0 into the next round, but at least it's MR15. So then it comes down to the conversation then strategically, when is the best moment to go hunting for these kills or not? And I'd probably, deflect this over to you, Sliggy, but for me, I see it as, if you have a shit ton of money and the others don't, just go fucking kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much that. You kind of just summed it up well. It's like hunting the guns from them is like a luxury, basically. If you're, that's the way I view it. Sometimes you always wanna, especially when it's just like the plant and they not going for the diffuse. It is like a just pure luxury. A lot of time you want to keep your economy in mind, their economy in mind, and it's not the best idea to hunt. So yeah, a lot of the time it's just when you have loads of money and you're feeling really in control of the game. There's definitely something that I wanted to like bring into this conversation as well when talking about economy. It's like the ult economy as well. Like a lot of times you can go hunting for just ultimates, so like in the orbs that you get off the kills as well. So that can always be a thing. Like if they have their ult already, and you need to get your ult. Sometimes if you have a lot of money, again, it's okay situation to like die so that you can get your ult. And it's also why I'm gonna just swift this conversation moving over to like Chamber and Chamber's ult, and like everyone's always just puts like Chamber ult, and we go, yeah, Chamber's ult's really good, but no one really realizes the effect that it has economy wise and how good it is on these eco rounds. Especially, I think I saw like a stat the other day where it's like Optic win, it's like over 65% of their 50s or something, and a lot of it's just because of the chamber impact that they have because they're always saving this ult for 50s. So yeah, that's like another thing that people, when they think of chamber, they don't really realize how much it affects the economy heavily as well. Having like these ultimates that you can use as an extra gun, really, like it's a good ult on its own, and then you like can save and have an extra gun going in, so you can constantly keep your enemy's economy like in a good place.
That's very interesting. Definitely interesting.
That was brought up though. I think people were discussing them when they first saw Chamber. They're like, I mean, it's kind of like Bladestorm in a way, right? It's kind of like we can fall back on this when our economy kind of sucks and bounce off a little bit more. Let's keep talking about Leviatan. We are sadly eulogizing them, right? Obviously, a very exciting matchup against Fnatic had us on the edge of our seats in that map 3. But one thing that really impressed us about this team was their Ascent play. I mean, we've got obviously footage from both from the DRX and Fnatic games. Ascent Andes, you might say. We're talking about teams being incredibly good on some maps. Leviatan looked very, very good here.
Yeah. This was definitely like one of those matches where like, why the hell? I was agreeing to the desk. Why is Leviatan picking into this map when DRX even were the team that invented the triple initiator comp onto this map on Ascent. And you even see from DRX, they shied away from that comp, thinking that they get more value out of a Killjoy. And like, why do you want to play this against Leviatan? Or Leviatan, why do you want to play this against DRX? It was the same argument I had as to why when DRX was playing against Northeption, I think, and Northeption brought out the bind comp with the Neon and the Breach. But Leviatan played this superb. I think they probably had the most aggressive triple initiator defense that I've seen so far on this map, and I feel that it kind of caught DRX off guard. But I think not only that, there's been so many good moments from just Melzer in general. Like, he definitely improved and impressed me compared to how he played against Crew during the LATAM qualifiers. And man, this team has a lot of firepower after all under their belts, on top of Owner and I forgot the assistant coach's name, but also came from Crew. But they did a great job to just understand the playstyles of their opponents, beating them on their strongest maps too. And I think Ascent definitely showed for that. The other maps, they were still close, you know? It was brawly, it was close. It wasn't maybe as flushed out as their Ascent was. Maybe is the reason why they really only win on this map too.
Yeah, I'm excited about this team, to be honest. We get to see them at champs, so that's pretty cool.
That's true.
I thought again, going back to their Ascent being unreal, dude. I love this comp, this triple initiator comp that that DRX made, and then they just completely owned them with it back. It was so nice to see. I think it's the best this comp's ever looked. Their attack was just so good. Like, all their rounds look the same within the first 10 seconds, but then they can be anywhere. Like, it's so nice. They're fast mid default. Like, they're taking map control within the first 15 seconds every single time in multiple places. It's really, really nice to watch. It was one of those one of those games where I just watched it and I was like, right, I'm saving this, because if I ever like come back into a team, like, I'm going to just handpick a majority of the stuff that I saw here. Their playbook was massive. And yeah, this again, I think their coach, again, I'm glad you shouted him out, because when we played Crew in champs when he was there, I was impressed with a lot of the stuff that he did for Crew. So I think he's a really good coach, and I think that's showing on Leviathan. And yeah, they have some strong players as well. I think Adverso, obviously Taco deserves a shout as well, but I was impressed by Adverso this tournament as well.
So we've had a chance now to see how our teams have shaped up, and some have been shaken out. So, you know, I guess to ask you guys, like, how I guess your perception of these teams has changed. Let's talk about who from here on out stands to take it all. I mean, worth pointing out that there are some. We got 4 teams. We've got Fun plus Phoenix, Fnatic, Paper Rex, and Optic still remaining. So Vans, who do you think is going to go all the way?
You know what? My heart really wants to say Optic, because I really want the storyline at the back-to-back, but I'm probably going to have to go with PRX being the team that's going to be able to win Masters 2. Again, I think they're playing the best Valorant that we've seen so far. As we've just talked about, like, the triple initiator comp on Ascent probably looked the best here from Leviatan, and other teams such as Optic, such as EG, and even DRX plays that very well. Well, PRX plays a slightly different comp that still makes it look very good, and that's with the addition of the Raze to add more of the aggression. When you talk about how chaotic PRX could be, I think this is one of those great examples that I wanted to show right now. And it's basically, to put you guys in the situation right now, is that it's 12-11 in favor of PRX, but they've already lost, I think, like 2 or 3 rounds in a row at this point versus Fnatic. And look at their economy, how shut off it is. And they don't shy away of playing backs against the wall to be like, oh, we're just going to try to play conservatively. Fuck no. Basically what they do is, if you look at this setup here, from
they have good util, right?
Exactly. That's the most important part too, because as chaotic they could get into like just pushing against you in the spawn, they're still very good for set plays. So look at how Benkai is setting up this haunt. So it's gonna head towards Gelato, right? I'm gonna try to find my pen over here. We're gonna go to Sliggy style. So this haunt is gonna be able to overlook this this Gelato area, but where it lands, I think this is the advantage as well as to having a fade versus a Sova, where Sova has had a drop. Because Sova, you still have to do the lineups, and it's so slow to get behind a wall. You're already turning people around where they're breaking a dart, and they're not going to get flashed, right? The advantage of having the fade with the haunt is that you actually throw this haunt towards the air, and when it lands, look at what lands on the top over here. There's a flash that goes on top of that too. So when you're actually looking up to try to break the haunt, then you have a flash that just pops into your face. You can't break it. Meanwhile, you have a fucking smoker that's inside B that's able to do the one-way smoke that's standard, but Jing does a double satchel from generator into the smoke so that the haunt off this flash, you see where the haunt lands? You see this flash that pops in the front? It pings out all the players so it's inside Gelato, with the exception of Boaster that went for a shrouded step right into the corner of where the orb is. If Boaster actually didn't go for the shrouded step, I think Jing probably could have killed at least 3 players instead of just 2 at this point. But now all he could do is hang out inside a smoke, kill people who are full blinded, and look at them. They were still looking in the air trying to find that freaking haunt. And that's just one of those plays as to why, like, if this continues and Optic is not ready or any other team is not ready for these type of plays, that PRX is going to win champions.
Pretty fleshed out.
Yeah.
Sort of strategy there as well, especially with like a slightly weaker economy. Yeah, okay. Obviously, paper X are super scary. I think that's pretty clear. I kind of want to know where you're at here, Sliggy, because we don't want to count out teams like FPX who now have Sugetsu back with the team, right? They're at full strength here, and they're obviously looking pretty good domestically. Fnatic still in the mix, of course, and Optic. I'm interested to see where your head is at on who goes all the way here.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this ever since the question came up. At the beginning of this tournament, I wanted to just say that Fnatic were going to win. They definitely, at least from the online stuff, I felt like they looked like the best team I had seen personally. Agreed. We haven't seen that really. I haven't seen it been as convincing. I think Dirk's Dirk started great. He's had a couple of he had a rough best of 3 for sure, like 2 in a row. So I think, although I want to create a lot of pressure on Mini because he's their coach, I'm a good friend of him. I want to create a lot of pressure and say that Fnatic are going to win all the way and they should be winning. I'm actually going to go for FPX. I think now they have Sugetsu. I think they're one of the hardest teams to anti. I think they're one of the best teams at antiing. So I'm actually gonna go with FPX. I've been really impressed with them. They're kind of riding the wave at the moment of Sugetsu coming in. So yeah, I'm down to pick one of the guys in the lower brackets. I'm gonna support the EMEA boys there.
Okay, all right. And I'll just go with Optic because I can.
That's a smart one.
I think they lose. I think they lose against Paper Rex though.
Yeah. In the upper finals at least, right?
In this upper final. Yeah, they have to run the lowers.
This is actually interesting too, because I'm along the lines that FPX could actually beat Fnatic as well in the lower matches. The thing is, though, is Durka has maybe not been fragging as well as we expect him to do online, but has still been playing very well. And Alphair definitely continues his great run from online to on LAN, despite the first match, in my opinion. But despite those two guys still being able to frag, overall, it doesn't look like the Fnatic that was unstoppable in EMEA. But going head-to-head between FPX and Fnatic, it still you could still have the argument that FPX, looks the strongest so far out of all the EMEA teams on LAN here at Masters 2. But this still comes down to be a regional matchup between FPX and Fnatic, where it's like, currently 4-1 in the records in favor of Fnatic. So even if you don't have a team that's looking the strongest, it could still be a team that could easily beat FPX because they know how FPX is currently playing.
All right, there you have it. That's our predictions. All of us with different ones, which is kind of fun. Obviously, also, we're not just eulogizing Leviatan. Also, you'll be missed Nostromo. Again, Nostromo made a bet with me that if that North Epsilon will be top 2. North Epsilon will be top 2. But it's not only that North Epsilon will be top 2, it's that they would do that, and we were absolutely moronic for thinking anything else. So that's the part that kind of got me. So it's been a pleasure. We'll see you on your next Twitch account. Again, shout out Twitch, who definitely enforce their bans, and I'm very hard to make multiple accounts on this platform because it's all very, very, very secure. But shout out to them, of course. They made this show possible. So thank you so much, Twitch. We appreciate your support. After the break, we're going to catch up with G2 Gozen's Carcass, of course, a player obviously out of Lithuania who's been around in European Valorant for quite some time now, of course, coaching one of the scariest Game Changers rosters in the world. We're going to talk with him after the break. If you're enjoying Valoranting, feel free to follow us on our other socials. We're over at Twitter at Valoranting, and of course, every Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT, we're live on twitch.tv/DNP. Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting. I think the hype is really building for Game Changers, especially a global clash, a chance to take the measure of all of our regions against one another, especially with, teams like Liquid and G2 Gozen and, of course, Cloud9 White being so dominant in their home regions. We're very excited to pit them against each other. I thought this would be a great chance to sort of continue to build some of that anticipation here and bring in someone, very intimately involved with one of these top teams. So, everybody, to help me welcome to the show, G2 Gozen's coach, Carcass. Thank you so much for coming on the show, mate. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
Holy shit, that room's pimped out, man.
Right? I love it. Looking good. Looking good over there. That's what we'd like to see. Carcass, man, obviously, thanks for joining us. For those that follow the European scene, they'd know you from teams like Wave Esports, and there's a stint on Absolute Legends as well going back. So you obviously have got a rich history in Valorant as well. And I'm sure that's not it. Tell us a little bit about your background here before coming into Valorant and before becoming the coach here for G2 Gozen.
Yeah, I mean, the first competitive game I was like made my first steps into competitive was Dota 2. Like that's totally out of the scene, and but it was only like small steps. Like I wouldn't even call it like semi-professional, but I went to like some national, like local tournaments, I would say. But like I wasn't really successful there because I knew that FPS games are still like the better for me, and I'm just better in it. So then I switched to CS:GO, basically like instantly. Like I didn't play competitively like 1.6 or 1.5, even though like I started playing CS when I was like 5 years old. No, like 6 years old, yeah, like 6, 7. So it was like 1.5, like with my older brother and stuff. Like I can remember that I didn't even know how to read and how to write, but I managed to remember how to write the like connect and full IP address into the console to connect to the server I needed to join, So yeah, that was my like the start. And yeah, when I was like 18 years old, I decided, I'm gonna try playing CSGO. And I went instantly after 3 months. I went into once again local tournament. I won a third place out of like 7-8 teams, and I thought, oh my god, like that's not bad. We almost beat like top Latvian team. Like they were like at the time they were like the best in the Baltic countries, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm good at it, And then I started grinding, like switching teams constantly, like creating one, then got invited to the better one, and then kinda like I reached the top in Lithuania, I would say. We were like one of the best teams. Then we kind of reached the top in Baltic teams, like in the Baltic scene overall, like Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And then my grind stopped because like I couldn't go through that level, So I was like basically grinding FPLC, rank G, trying to reach FPL and stuff, but I wasn't successful, unfortunately. And at that time, like after like I don't know 4 or 5 years of like playing CS:GO, I saw that my motivation is like going down. And I decided like it's now or never. I need to like either switch the game or just quit gaming, And like I decided to switch the game.
Okay. And I thought you were gonna say, Carcass, that at 5 years old you didn't know how to read or write, but you knew how to control an AK spray in Counter-Strike 1.6. I was gonna be like, that's fucking insane.
That as well.
I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so you made the switch over to Valorant, and if I remember correctly, you're also involved with like Wave Esports back then when you were first starting in Valorant, and I kind of want to like ask you the contrast of what it was like grinding the quote unquote tier 2 scene out in Europe, because for example here in North America, we have like all those monthly events with the nursery gamers, with the PK monthlies and Sacre Cups, etc. But in Europe, it feels like there's not that much going on. So how do you keep that motivation to continue to, find that success in Valorant, and what type of support system you think Valorant kind of had in Europe?
I mean, we were kind of happy with the organization we had. Like back then, we had like a really nice team with like a good chemistry and stuff. And the motivation was just there, you know, and like we wanted to be the best. We knew that we're pretty much close to the top, that we can once again like reach the at least VCT and stuff. We in the qualifiers event pretty close, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost versus Fnatic, I think 2 times in like close games. And yeah, we knew that we have everything. We just need like to fix like small details, small mistakes, and we're gonna be in top, you know. And like it didn't really matter that like there was no big tournaments, like not like lower tournaments, I would say, lower tier tournaments that much in EU. Of course, it was like pity to see, you know, like, oh my god, NA has like this and that and that and this prize pools, and yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, you know. Like you get like you take what you get, you know. So
for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I kind of just wanted to ask more of like the coach-based questions, because obviously, I did a lot of coaching, and I know where a lot of my team, a lot of my time went up into like strat making. I just kind of wanted to know, like, first of all, how are you like enjoying the coaching, and more like, what's like your main focus in terms of like your like role in the team in terms of coaching? Like, what do you find fills up like the majority of your time?
I mean, first of all, I really enjoy coaching. I don't have like like a comparison, you know, because like it's my first time coaching overall. Back in CS, I didn't even had a coach, like a proper coach. In Valorant, like my only coach was in Wave Esports, like Itzo basically, and we had like an analyst Forest, and like I learned how they're working from their perspective basically, and I took everything what they did good, and I took that, and like I'm trying to implement that into my team, and I took also what I didn't like about their coaching style, and I'm trying to avoid that, you know. Like so basically that's how I'm trying to grow as a coach, you know, because like I didn't have any like teachers or stuff, you know, like, and any like backgrounds. So yeah, like, and answering the question, I'm kind of splitting it up like everywhere. Like I'm doing individual reviews with the team, like with the teammates. I'm also doing like team reviews. I'm doing analytical job as well because I'm the only one in the coaching staff of G2 Gozen. So it's like basically everything goes on my shoulders in this case. But since like my players are like really experienced, we're kind of working closely with Julia, I would say, and like during the scrims, she's doing a lot of work, like kind of as a like assistant coach, I would say, where she's like pointing out mistakes, like individual players' mistakes, you know, when we're like things didn't go well, you know, like this utility wasn't used, and like when it was needed and stuff like that. So she's pointing that things, and I'm more like putting like a broad picture of the team, like what should like the rotations, like the positionings, like
So a
what sides we should hit.
macro-oriented approach.
Yeah, macro oriented.
Yeah.
Like I would say, yeah, because as I said, like especially when we had Zaz as well, she was also like with a huge pack of experience. You know, we have Mimi Pitts also, like who's like been in the scene for like so long time, so they know a lot of things. So my job is easier with that team, and I don't know how it would be like if I would take like totally new team, and I would need to make them good. You know, so maybe my like how to say, my coaching style would be different because I'm still learning, you know, and yeah.
What I find interesting, obviously, you talk about there's a fair bit on your shoulders, right? But you're also exposed to like many of the different aspects of coaching. So this is actually a great opportunity to find out what resonates most with you by kind of doing as much of it. So it's kind of a cool environment for you to explore that. I want to like go back a little bit. This is like a two-parter, yeah. First, I want to know like how did the opportunity to sort of jump into this G2 Gozen roster come about? And you know, I'm curious to know like for you, what kind of drew you to this opportunity? What kind of, because obviously you were, you know, you spent so long as a player, you know, obviously, and it's a bit of a leap, right, to move into a coaching role, especially with the team that has, I'd say, pretty high expectations already. So, yeah, how to come about, and what is about G2 that sort of drew you in?
I mean, I would like to say like that it was like a long story how I went to the coaching, but unfortunately it wasn't. Basically, it was like totally out of the blue. I wrote like I knew Mimi from before.
Yep.
Like we were grinding FPLC in CS:GO
Mhm.
and stuff, and we just like we were friends kinda. And it was always a pleasure to play with each other, you know. And like in Valorant, when she switched later on. I didn't have any contact basically, but I saw that they're playing with the team, and they're like preparing for the GameChangers and stuff. And I just like randomly wrote her on Instagram, "Yo, what's up? Do you need any help like to prepare for the tournament for the European and blah blah blah?" And she said, "Yeah, like we're not having any coaches. I
Wow.
would need to talk with the team and stuff." And I was like, "Okay, okay." But at that back then, I didn't knew that it was G2.
Mm.
Like I didn't know that there's any org behind them. Like even though there was like a rumors in the scene that oh my god, like these girls are like being signed by G2. I didn't know that for some reason. I don't know, even though it was like on the news pages and stuff. Yep, that's the message. Yep, and yeah, like after 2 days, like I've been contacted by their esports manager Noki, and he just like called me on a call. We had like a little interview, and he said like, "Yo, you wanna pack your bags and come into GT office like in 2 days?" I'm like, "Sure, let's try." And yeah, it was a kind of shock for me because I wasn't doing anything, so I had no prep documents, you know, and anything. So I had to like I don't know, fast run, like speed run, prepare something for them. And yeah, we went into the tournament. We took the third place, I think, for the first time, and the team was happy overall with me, how I'm working and stuff. We found like a common ground, I would say, and yeah, and overall the organization was happy, and yeah, they said like, come on, let's try to work for the upcoming years.
Definition of
awesome.
like being thrown in the deep end, really, isn't it? You have 2 days to prepare something for this team. That's wild, man. All right, Van, you're up.
Yeah, no, I think it's also very interesting as well because, you know, you just said you had 2 days of prep to get to the G2 offices, and then suddenly you guys win a Game Changers tournament, which is really cool as a storyline because overall that's when you started seeing like the dominance of G2 esports in the Game Changer scene in general, winning events after events. So this now comes to a surprise for me when I read about Zaz leaving the roster and wanting to retire because, you know, you say you've been playing Counter-Strike since 1.5. Zaz's been around during that time as well. I remember when I was following her and like the team that they got with like Meet Your Makers to eventually become Les Cells and then being like one of the top competitors versus the Christine Potter of North America, right? Like the Alice Liu and stuff like that too. So I know that she has a competitive drive to want to continue to be the best. And I didn't think that Zaz would retire until we actually see the GameChangers LAN, and then she wins that, and then finally she could close the books and move on to the next thing. So did this come as a surprise for you to see Zaz just up and leave, and what was like the reasoning behind all of this? If you're able to share, that is.
Yeah, we kind of like expected the same from like as you did, like that she's probably gonna like at the worst case she's gonna retire after the LAN event when we're gonna win it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
after
it. I love it.
But yeah, it was kind of shock for us because like the first two person who like she shared that with, it was like me and our manager Thibaut. And yeah, we're like, okay, but we were kind of ready for it. By your surprise, we were already talking with Mary back at the den, like when she wasn't even like said that.
Okay.
Because like what we had in mind, like it's not a
secret.
It's not a secret, yeah. That our team's like average age is pretty high.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, people gonna retire. Like maybe they're gonna switch something, you know, and like maybe whatever. And yeah, we kind of knew that we need a young gun to maybe change and replace the older experienced player. So we already were in the contact with Mary, and of course, it was only in the early stages, like of talking with her. So yeah, like of course, like losing Zaz was a huge shock and like how to say not a downgrade because it's a new player and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We still need to prepare here, but yeah. Yeah, and basically we kind of started our steps preparing Mary like earlier. Of course, like Zaz, like when we were talking about Zaz, what she had like in our team and what she bring us is like morale and motivation and like overall like how charismatic she is.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you've seen any of our vlogs, you can see like you hear screaming, shouting, and stuff.
Of course.
So that's what I think that we might lack in the future a bit, but we're putting our work on it, and we're trying to build this hype and momentum like habits in the team. You know, like that's there is no Zaz anymore. We need to hype each other. We need to like cheer each other up if like something is not going well. And I think Maddie is like a great addition for us.
Nice.
And like she's super young, she's super talented, and now she just needs to learn those small details. And so far, she's fitting the team well.
For sure, for sure.
Okay, so I kind of wanted to ask you about in terms of like your prep as well. Like how heavy are you? So like when you guys have like a game coming up, how heavy are you guys going into prep and anti? Are you proper going in doing like a lot of stuff? Do you have a guy to work? You have a analyst as well, right? With you. So how
No,
much
we
like
don't have
No,
analysts.
it's you,
do you
right?
it's just on
Carcass?
your own?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, yeah, it's only me.
Okay, yeah. So so kind of like how much prep are you doing, and then I guess like how many like anti like strats are you actually like going in, or is it more just you guys playing your own game?
At least in EMEA, like in game changer scene, it is not really hard to like counter strat enemy teams because all of the teams at the top level has their patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one or two bots, and you can clearly see what strat they're gonna use. And like because it's super structured, like they're like either like one team, it doesn't matter which one, like they're playing like pretty much no structure, but they have like default plan. Like if the reveal is going there, they're gonna go there, you know. Like, and these small details that you can catch up on it, like that makes it pretty much easy to read the opponents, you know. So like it doesn't require us like a lot of time. So basically, usually I'm doing it on my own, and then like I'm presenting it to the team like a super short version of it. And so far it's working. So like we're gonna keep it doing like that probably until it works. If we'll see that we need to like we require more time to analyze the enemy teams, then we're probably gonna spend a little bit more time and like going more in details. But so far, like as I said, it's like it's pretty obvious how the enemy teams play.
And actually, it ties into another question that I wanted to ask on top of that in terms of like competition and how you prepare is, and this is also a question that comes in from chat here from Stallion M. Just asking, like, in general with G2 Gozen, or how does the Game Changers team practice in general? Is there any other Game Changer teams that you practice against to scrim, or do you get to actually scrim versus like VCT teams to try to improve, or is it really just within the region or within your own scene? How does that work for you guys?
I mean, we have a rule that we never scrim against any female team. And we're usually like, I'm booking the scrims because like as a player, I knew like I know almost like, I don't know, probably 80 or 70% of the players itself.
Yeah.
Like if I see any of the good name in the team, I just take it. Like if the team name is unknown. But we are trying to like scrim teams from like top groups in EU, like Euro, Valorant, and stuff. And yeah, like we scrimmed against VCT teams. Like we're from time to time we're scrimming against G2 male team as well.
Nice.
Like we have this opportunity.
Yeah.
So it helps us out like a lot, I would say, because like then the Pipson can share us with like some feedback and stuff. So that's really nice. And with other VCT teams, not that much because they're not accepting us that much, you know. But it just makes like we have this mindset that whatever team we're gonna play in scrims, it's gonna be better team than we're gonna play in game changers, you know. So we don't mind winning, we don't mind losing the scrim. We just go for like there's like gameplay itself, you know. Like we're just trying to get the maximum out of it.
Is that how you're practicing? Is that how you're preparing for like an international GameChangers LAN then as well, or do things change there? You know, does it feel like maybe you want to maybe change the way you prep for an event of that sort of scale, or is it kind of the same way you've been prepping as you just explained before?
I mean, we didn't fully started prepping for the international event. Like, we're still not guaranteed with the spots, so we're like taking it step by step. We have like third game changers in front of us. So I wouldn't think that I don't think that we're gonna change the preparation style. But what we definitely gonna do is like analyzing more, because we don't have an opportunity to like play against these players in any tournament. So it's totally different approach when you play against the team and then you're watching. We don't even know like on what level Cloud9 White is. Like,
yeah,
they're winning in their region, but you still cannot like just from watching them, you cannot say like who is the better team, you know?
Yeah.
And how good they are.
That's
so yeah, I got a question, sorry, that kind of goes on to that. In terms of like Cloud9 White and Team Liquid, the female team as well, is there any other teams like that you have been watching? And if so, like how much of those other regions are you watching?
I mean, I would really like to like see Shopify Rebellion like as well. Like they almost beat Cloud9 White.
Yeah.
And it was like a really good fight, and I think that they kind of deserve the win, but unlucky. Also, other regions, like for example, Crew from Chile and Alter Ego from Indonesia, like you cannot underestimate these other regions as well. Like, because once, as I said, like you don't know how they play. They're the best in their region, so that means that they have something to show on it, right? Like it's the same in Copenhagen now, like, and in the previous VCT, like there's other teams like from other regions who we kinda maybe underestimate because they're from the smaller region. They're like not that huge names and stuff, but they're popping off, and they're like just here to like for the win, you know? So
yeah. Well, because you're also mentioning before, Carcass, just saying like, you know, the Game Changers teams, at least in your region in Europe, it's like obvious how they play. And if you're trying to compare it to other regions, when you're saying, well, we don't know who's the better team until we get to play them, what is the actual competition currently like in EMEA? Because we had the ex-analyst of Fnatic before Anders come in last week, and he was saying like, you know, if it's G2, 10-star, Guildex or whatnot are still pretty close, while for North America it's like Cloud9 White and Shopify Rebellion, then you have the rest. Is that what it's like in Europe, or it's just like G2's pretty dominant right now in your eyes?
Like, I'm not a fan like of underestimating teams and players, you know. So I say that they're pretty close, like the rest of the team, as you mentioned, like 10-star, now Navi, and also Guild, but they still need to fix some things to like to actually beat us and stuff like that. Like, but we're not sleeping as well, and we're like fixing our stuff, and we're not on like. It's easier to reach the top, but it's hard to be there, you know, and like to stay there. So I think that these teams are like favorites, but like from the last Game Changers, I got surprised by other teams as well. Like for example, Case, and there was also one team, but whatever. So yeah, like the scene is growing, and I would say, and maybe like in a year or two, we're gonna see like more competitors, like more new female team players and teams who can like be in the top, you know, and like it makes like the scene closer, you know, and harder to compete in.
How does the goal setting then work? You know, obviously I mentioned international game changers, but you know, it's pretty clear that, you know, yourself and the team are really just trying to focus on what's in front of you. So yeah, in terms of like this next game changers that's coming up. So then how does that affect like your goal setting overall? Like, is there a goal for this year, or is it for just this season or a few months? Like, what, when you first joined the team, like what was, when you sit and look at a whiteboard and you go, okay, here's what we're aiming for. What was that goal? And like, has that changed much since you came on board?
I mean, overall, like G2's vision is to be at the top, you know, like to be the best team in like the game you're competing in. So it's like it's not different from our team's goal. And when I first joined, we had like actually a meeting with the team, and like we talked about our goals for like this season. We're not going like deeper into it, but one of the first goals was, of course, like to win all the game changers and to win international events. But also we had the first when we just meet, we had also a goal to qualify for a regional league, but it didn't happen. Like yeah, like we kind of realized that it's like too tough competition for now. But still, it's like back in our heads that we want one day we want to like beat at least some of the good tournament, like good teams in the qualifiers for VCT, for example. And to knock them out, it would be like a perfect scenario, right?
Yeah,
for sure, for sure.
I kind of wanted to ask you again, kind of looking forward as well. What's your like views on all of the franchising that's coming up, and how do you think it's going to like affect game changers?
Overall, the view of
Yeah,
franchising.
pretty much overall, like your opinion on it, and then how you kind of think it's going to affect the scene.
It's a hard question actually. It maybe closes the possibilities and for like a younger players or like not the top tier 1 players who's like not gonna be in the franchise. It's gonna be maybe harder to find orgs, but it also depends on what kind like it's gonna be, how they're gonna make the tier 2 scene basically. Like if there's gonna be enough tournaments, enough viewership for the orgs to play in and like to have sponsors and stuff. But for those who's gonna be in like franchise league, like I think it's really good. Like it just makes you all the guarantees. You're always on the spotlight and you can always compete, and there is no like no risks for you to that your organization or like your team is gonna drop down to regional, especially when we know that's like in Valorant is still like there's no dominant performance. Like everyone can beat everyone basically. Like there's like some, of course, there's some favorite teams, but when I was playing, there was like always upsets. Like some random, like random at the back then, you know, like Polish team just beats like one of the top teams, and like they're knocking out. And especially for now, like if there is no last chance like teams are waiting for last chance qualifier. If you drop down, like you need to wait 5-6 months and doing nothing basically. And I heard like some teams are having struggles even to find scrims because there's
people
like
are giving up.
player break of like 6 months, you know, and
involuntary player break.
It's a long ass break.
Yeah. So they're trying to grant Radiant, I guess, and yeah. But besides that, like for the game changers, I'm not sure if it's gonna affect that much. I hope that maybe like if there's gonna be franchise and like male scene and so on, maybe they're gonna have more time to put some time into female scene and game changers, and maybe there's gonna be more tournaments than 3 of them, you know, and like maybe there's gonna be more LAN tournaments. Maybe they're gonna use the studio they're gonna use for like franchise league, like for game changers as well, like in some days, you know, and maybe they're gonna fill it up with like some nice stuff for the female scene because it's growing. Like the organizations are coming in like one by one, and yeah, it's cool.
At least for now, there hasn't been any direct conversations with the game changer scene about franchising or anything, right? Everything that we heard about is still VCT related. Okay.
But it's obviously the discussion about like how it affects tier 2 is the most interesting to me.
Of course.
You know, like what's left in the wake of that sort of change. Sorry, Vince.
No, it's all good. No, it's good to know as well that, you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe this time the guinea pig is the actual, you know, VCT circuit, and then we'll see what happens if it was a good move or not, and then maybe the game changers format is probably the best format to look at to continue to pump and support the Valorant scene. But speaking of VCT itself, I don't know if you had a chance to look at Masters 2 and see if there was anything that really popped for you that impressed you. Any team, again, looking at underestimating teams or not, what were the big surprises of Masters 2 that you've seen so far, Carcass?
I mean, probably like everyone is surprised how PaperX is playing good. Like, they're insane. Like other than that, like I'm really surprised by like other regions, like other
Yeah.
small, like Leviatan, for example. They like did put a like super good fight versus Fnatic, and that was like insane to watch. And yeah, that's satisfying me, you know, like that's like I'm always. It's probably not me only. That's we're cheering for the underdogs, right?
Yeah, of
like
course.
underdog stories is like super nice to watch, and yeah, and it's really entertaining for me. And but for EMEA representatives, like I don't know, I'm cheering for FPX,
Yeah.
and I hope they're gonna succeed. But that's my personal view, you know. And
that's interesting too, because you know, and not only I'll ask the question for you, Carcass, but also for you, Sliggy, because you guys have the minds of like learning Valorant and like trying to instill a certain play style that Valorant should be played at, of course, right, at the highest level. And there was a conversation that I had even with Sean Garris and DDK in the past, when this is looking back at like Masters, I think 2, when FaZe Clan was like the definition of Schmeeg, and having the over-aggressive playstyle of Valorant was like super cool and entertaining to see. But at the same time, it felt like it was hindering how Valorant should be played, because, you know, you're coming out, it's supposed to be strategical. There's a lot of abilities. There's a lot of teamwork and combination that should be put together in order to play the best Valorant. But then suddenly you have teams like FaZe Clan, like PRX, that could just run it down against you and still win, breaking all the timings that you have in terms of ability synergy. So do you think at the same time it's still a bad thing to see this type of like over-aggressive playstyle that seems to be getting a lot of success versus the tactical style of Valorant? Long question, but
should I answer first?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Carcass.
I don't think that's a bad playstyle. Like if it's working for the team, like even back in like if you watch back to TS, you know, like there's Brazil teams who are like super aggressive, you know, and like it's working for them. And if yeah, and if you're gonna try to copy them, it's not gonna work out for you, you know, like because it's not your team's playstyle. And if it's like, I don't see any problems of teams playing like that until it's working for them, you know. Like when I was playing in Wave, we also kind of went for like double duelist comp, you know, and like heavy execute based, and it was like working for them until the some point, you know, when teams are actually understanding how you play and trying to counter that. Of course, we're not on that high level as Paper X right now, like that we couldn't out aim everyone, because there was like super good aimers as well who can like just counter that. But yeah, like I'm a fan. Like variety is a good thing, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that as well. I think it's just like, it's so nice to have this game where you can just kind of decide your own style of play and just kind of do what you want to do. Like you can go fast, you can go really slow, like methodical. There's loads of teams that just create so much chaos and just kind of just work around it. So it's cool. And that kind of brings me on to another question as well. How would you decide, like how would you describe your place, like the actual play style of the team?
Yeah.
Would you say it's more like methodical, or are we causing chaos?
I think our team is kind of mix of those. Like we're like our playstyle, if you would like watch back our VODs and stuff, we're playing pretty defaulty style and we're reacting on what opponent is doing. And like I think that's the one of the biggest difference in MEA scene, that other teams are not reading the game. Like they're just going for their plays, like what they're doing and stuff. Maybe on defender side they're like countering some things, you know. But when they're playing attack, they just have their plan and they're following it. If it doesn't work, like they're going to plan B and trying again to do that, you know. And I think that's the biggest difference between our team and the rest of the GameChangers in MEA.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting to see. You know, it's one thing to have your strategy or your default play and then just sort of try and execute that. And it's another to take feedback from what you're actually seeing and how the flow of information goes and acting on that. And it's clear to see that's one of the reasons why G2 sort of is starting to show as definitely head and shoulders above the rest. Carcass, I mean, obviously you talk about, you know, looking toward this this next Gamechangers, man. So good to hear you guys are getting ahead of yourselves and you're focused. Good luck. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been really, really good to pick your brain. I thought the story, especially your origin getting into G2 Gozen, was fascinating, man. So thanks for taking the time to share that with us.
Thanks for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Carcass. Appreciate it.
And good luck. Hopefully, we'll see you at
Thank
the
you.
International Gamechangers LAN.
See you in Berlin. See you in Berlin.
See you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to take a quick break. We'll come back and then we're going to sort of talk about, we're going to wrap some of the teams that have been sent home from Copenhagen as well. Give you guys a bit of the skinny if you haven't been able to keep up, although I hope you have. And yeah, that'll be that. So stick around. We'll talk a bit more about some of our teams that we've had to send packing. We'll be back after this.
If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell for the future noties, but also comment below with what you'd like to see in our future shows.
All right, yeah, here's the part of the show where we march all the teams out to the parade ground and make sure they fucking, they're like, polish their bayonet. And no, it's not a euphemism. And they're all, the uniforms are all looking good. We're going to take the temperature of some of these rosters here, at least. Oh, now I'm mixing metaphors. You're not fucking. Let's talk about some of the teams right now in Copenhagen. Let's start with XSET, right, who have been eliminated and, had suffered the same scenario as the Guard did, right? Coming in top seed, they go into the playoffs and they lose. Vance, you wanted to start here, so let it rip.
Yeah, I think it's just really unfortunate for XSET where they continue to have this block that they can't really finish games, man. You talk about like polishing the rods and mixing idioms and stuff like that too, but one thing they can't do, XSET, is currently finish. It was a problem that they had in North America. And in this game, too, against Leviatan, it was the same thing. Like, there was so many rounds in their second map on Ascent. It was like 12-8 at some point. But there was just so many 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2s that missed a lot of communication as well. I'm thinking, like, there was a 2 versus 2 where Aaron gets a lockdown, puts the lockdown down, and then runs out in the open on a 2 versus 1, actually, that Melzer is able to clutch in the end versus BCJ as that second player. So there was a lot of miscommunication going into that, and that was an issue that I even had a conversation with Don in North America before going into Masters 2, and he told me, like, look, we actually have somebody to come in and help us as like a mental coach and stuff like that to get through that hump, over that hump, to actually being able to win. And it works out in North America, but we didn't get a chance to do that at the international stage. And I don't know if we have that round number 24 where it actually made the rounds on the time feeds of everybody between Leviatan and XSET. But the biggest example right here is two teams that just crumbled, and then you just had to fight through, and Leviatan was better. But at this moment, when you actually have a spike and you TP into heaven and you lose it, look at the rotations of XSET. They already had players inside the A site, but because of the mistake of that Melzer did of dropping a spike into heaven, you had Aaron and everybody else just rotate outside of the A site to all go back into the staircase of heaven, giving up the A site to fucking Leviatan. And when that happens and the spike drops, you now have to play a retake with a lot less utility against a Rolling Thunder from Adverso after a kill on top of that too, and everything just shambles, and then you lose that. I know they had some resiliency to be able to come back in this third map, but getting those moments where you should have closed it and you just give up the site like that too, it shows that they needed that. They needed to work on that, on like how to finish.
I think this is. I think that round there is probably the craziest round I've ever seen in Valorant. Like honestly, just as one round on its own. When I was watching it, I was just
confused as fuck.
Dude, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what was going on. When he went heaven with the spike, I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
The only thing I would say about XSET, like obviously they got boomed in the first game against Optic, and I thought Optic just played way better than them. They went back into old comps. I didn't think XSET looked too bad. It just felt like Optic just being Optic. The Leviathan game, so I kind of want to get your opinions on this as well. So BCJ and stuff, they started before the tournament, they started saying stuff like giving it about other initiators and stuff. I just feel like they unnecessarily put pressure on themselves. I didn't think there was too much pressure on them going into this tournament, and then they started doing like the kind of talking about other players not being as good as them and stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't think they needed to put the pressure on them, especially for a team that isn't experienced at LAN. I'm not sure if that's had any effect, but I don't think it would have helped them.
They definitely wanted to do the Conor McGregor of Valorant going into the event for sure. Just talk smack about so many players and teams. To even like in this matchup here before the grand final or this match happened, I think it was Cryocells that fake fist bump Melzer, and then there was like a highlight reel of just Melzer clutching against Cryo and BCJ nonstop, which was fucking hilarious. And I think it's great what BCJ did in terms of like a marketing ploy. Because I feel that even if the community was against what he was saying or for what he was saying, I think his main goal was to have the team get talked about. So now it all comes down to, okay, well, XSET's going to get talked about how shit they were versus their opponents at Masters 2, but they have a chance at redemption during Champions, and this storyline is still going to be talked about. So I think in terms of like that marketing sense, it works quite well. But definitely they didn't put the money where their mouth was for Masters 2, unfortunately.
Why? I mean, fucking hell. What will
look,
people are taking leaves
I'm
out
still
of
repping them.
Zom's playbook.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? But it's funny. I still like it. I love BCJ's attitude going into that one as well. And even when you're looking at the pressure, most of the pressure that the XSET would get would be more on Zekin and Cryocells, in my opinion, right? Going into this event, because they've been popping off in the North American scene. And then the question was, can you repeat this going into the national stage as their first LAN? And they definitely did. You know, Cryocells didn't look shaky at all into any of his games, especially against Leviatan. He had so many rounds where he was actually trying to pull back for the team, do like 2Ks, 3Ks. But again, it came down to the 2v2s and the 1v1s, where communication was what fell through the cracks for XSET to be able to run like the ping pong swings and stuff like that too. So ironing that out will look a lot better for Champions, but I mean, it's still a big lesson learned. But actually, that brings me to the question as well, and I want to ask you, Sliggy, because you know we go through the storyline of the of the curse of North America. If like you go into the first seed and you skip groups, you just get shit on in the main double elimination bracket. I always had the opinion that it doesn't matter if you actually skip groups, because you still have 2 BO3s as a chance to be able to go deep into the tournament run, right? If you lose twice into the main bracket,
you can't warm up against scrubbers, Van Sussy.
They're not scrubbers though.
Yeah.
Did you look at the competition? There's no scrubbers.
This is where I'm sitting, and like let's just stop all these people that are just going like, oh, but you kind of want to play groups. Like a year ago, sure. Like a year ago, groups were fine. The other regions weren't that good. Every other region now is incredible. Look at some of the close matches we're getting.
You just want to play. You just need to win.
Dude, no one wants to. Everyone, if they wanted to, could skip groups. It's not easy. It's not warm up. It's just an extra chance to go out and look shitter than you expected. That's it. That's all it is. So like, everyone stop this narrative of like, oh yeah, but they didn't get to like. No one wants that. You get a top 8 anyway. That's great. Like no one wants to play groups. Every team is unbelievable now. Like let's just stop that narrative. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. You make it through past groups, play that. Like, just try to win. You lose 2 games in the playoffs, you still lost 2 games in groups, you're still out no matter what. So it's good that you made it to top 8.
Sure, they're going to be a little bit rustier, but they probably would have gone out in groups if they're doing like these kind of performances anyway. So it's like...
Exactly. I was pretty disappointed by DRX in this lower bracket. To be fair, like if anyone takes Achilleos remotely seriously, you have overinflated expectations of this team every time Masters comes around. But FPX really, FPX really deconstructed this DRX team. I mean, fucking hell. That fracture map was, pretty abysmal from DRX. They get, I think they win the first bonus, and then that sort of defensive half of them is really, really quiet. Can this team bust into this top 4? Is it all about RB? Does this team rise and fall on this guy's shoulders? I mean, where the hell is this team at?
I think RB fucking popped off during the group stages. And then he got time to warm up, and then unfortunately he didn't for his FPX. But I think it stems more than that. It's not really just on the performance of RB. I think it's just DRX in general, because they had actually a very, very good fracture. Like, they fucking owned Optic on fracture. And then suddenly just lost their footing against FPX, because at the end of the day, it's still FPX. FPX is almost like a silent underdog at this point. Going into this tournament, because everybody has low expectations of FPX, just because everybody thought they were going to come in with only 2 players out of the 5 because of all of the visa issues. But now that they have a full roster, exactly, and you could actually see that it's a strong team that they had to play against, being DRX. It's not that easy, and Anders is just talking about it too. Like the mental endurance of DRX maybe isn't quite there going into like the deeper and deeper runs of the tournament. I think their best one was like at the online Masters tournament or some shit like that, right? Or like when they were Vision Strikers getting like 3rd and 4th. But outside of that, at LAN, they still need to get over like the deeper lower run. They can't bounce back. They just can't bounce back from a loss.
So I think, yeah, I mean they had their, this is the thing, and this happens every event when they just play their first game and you watch them and like they're getting a 13-1 out there and you're just like, oh my god, this is the time. It's all going to be different this time.
Yep. Yeah.
But honestly, in terms of like the playoffs run, I don't know, this Optic game. So if you go to look at the third map, they lost both pistols on bind. And it was 13-11. I'm telling you, if they win a pistol, I think this is completely different. And then I agree they did get completely bodied by FPX, but FPX are just on like a hot streak. They got Sugetsu back, so they're like really pumped up right now. Yeah, it's definitely not what we see at the beginning of the tournament. But no matter how many times I see them like go out later on stages, as soon as I see their first game, I'm like, oh, okay, they're making it to the final this time.
every time.
Every time. They always give me.
I wish we had the storyline of like the DRX and PaperX, because they were like scrim partners for the longest time, where I would even think that if DRX had an elimination game versus PRX, then we would have had a different storyline even for DRX, right? So I still find that no matter what, they're still a very strong team. It's not on like you can't shit on RB. I think RB played fairly well enough as a tournament. Everybody pretty much stepped up. I mean, as Sliggy was mentioned before, it really came down to like just a few rounds or even a pistol against Optic. But overall, like if you're looking at how snappy the players were, every single one of them, it was actually quite good. Even Mako was actually quiet against FPX. I remember even Pansy if it was Pansy that was casting, but like the casters were saying, like at some point Mako was like 0-10 on Fracture against FPX. So it's not really just on like performances of players overall, because you know how good they are, and you saw that RB had great moments where they initiated him to get like those kills. Like he's updrafting with Bladestorm and just popping people in the air, playing with full confidence. But when it comes down to teams figuring out how you play, especially a team like FPX that has like 4 or 5 different comps on every map, it's just hard to play against. And you know that they come out prepared and they know how to anti-strat you, and that's mainly what we saw between this FPX DRX game more than performances on players.
Yeah. So talk to me then about, so we're going to go back to the group stage here, because this is a team that's like maybe a little bit harder for people to put their finger on. So let's talk about Xerxia, a team who actually exit really early to North Eption of all teams in a sort of best of 3. I know, Sliggy, you kind of wanted to talk about this. So
yeah,
have
so
at you.
These are like, if you go back to Iceland, right, 2 months ago, they're the guys that beat Optic at the beginning.
Yep.
And then they took us to a best of 3 third map, and it was like, I can't remember I think there were like 3 overtimes or something like that. I just remember it being crazy. The whole thing's a blur now. Like, and then this tournament again, they just had so many close games. I think they went out into a overtime again against North Eption, and it's just like, I don't know, man. This team is so good, and they just can't close out games. I don't know what it is about this team. Like, and even when I'm watching them, I'm just like, wow, this team's like really impressive. Like, they have really good players. Like, they have really good set strats. And I don't know what it is. They just can't seem to close these games. Yeah, I'm kind of excited for them in the future. They're one of those teams that you don't want to see in your group, honestly, because they're like, they're now a team that you're expected to beat, just because of how many teams they keep like losing to in these tournaments. But they're so good, and I feel like they just have the upset potential against any team that they play.
Yeah. I mean, Scary continues to be literally a very good controller player, but when we had Ryan Central, and he was mentioning, like, you know, they don't have Patty Pan, and Surf doesn't fill Patty Pan's shoes. I definitely do think that he does. Like, I'm going to keep talking positively about Surf, that he's definitely one player to be feared for, because he's filling that role really, really well, actually, for the team. If you rewatch those games, Surf continues to be very, very strong, putting up great numbers. But that issue of closing, I think it's, again, one of those just unlucky moments where the competition continues to get better and better on the world stage, because on any other given Sunday, Xerxia could have qualified. Any other day, it could have been DRX that beats Optic, you know? We're getting to that point in Valorant right now where it's not just a region domination from just like Counter-Strike, for example, where it's just Europe all the time. Speaking of which, we finally have a Canadian that wins 2 titles in a row. I love that in Counter-Strike. GG to Twists. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Xerxia. I think they'll continue to come out strong. They're already at champions as well, right? Because they've had so many LAN appearances already.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident they have enough points. Yeah.
I think they're locked for it already.
Yeah, so it's going to be another team to look out for, and hopefully with Turkey, there's going to be a lot more matches on LAN with an audience. That'll be fucking awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, I thought also congratulations. We got to talk about Xerxia and no one mentioned Patapan's name, which I think is impressive and important as we evaluate well.
But I mentioned Surf on top of that. I think it was more on Surf and not necessarily saying that if it was Patty Pan, they would have won. No, because they're playing quite well with Surf.
No, he's chilling, by the way. He's taking the fat bag. He's Gucci. Yeah, okay, that's all we got time for today. So big shout out to Carcass for coming on the show. It was actually a really good interview, getting to talk a little bit about G2 Gozen. And maybe you realize that, like, they're kind of on the frontier in terms of the G2 org as well. It's like a pretty modest investment in that team, and they're still trying to feel their way out. So credit to them, and hope they do well going forward. And Sliggy, mate, thanks for joining us. You got a few days off, so it's nice to have you here on the show to pick your brain and benefit from your expertise, bro. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, you killed it. Enjoyed it at the watch parties, man. This guy's been like pulling in like 1,500 viewers every time.
Yeah.
Like almost as much as the main Valorant stream. Like, fuck. Give him a follow, man.
To be fair, I tuned in the other day. A main Valorant stream had like 70K, and like the top row of co-streams had like 300K viewers.
Tarek is pulling in numbers for sure.
Your ecosystem for like is so strange in Valorant. Like, I mean, if it works, it works. I'm open-minded about this kind of format and structure, but I don't know how this works like on the investment side. But
yeah,
hey,
we'll see.
I still think it's cool. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. We're going to be wrapping, of course, all that's gone down in Copenhagen. So definitely don't miss that. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for being with us here today. Shout out to Sliggy and Carcass. We'll see you next week.